Can you read someone's mind? Can you tell what they're thinking, what emotions are going on inside there? You'll be surprised at what you could pick up from reading other people, their thoughts, their emotions, even potential resistance. Let's do it.
Maximize your influence. Kurt Mortensen is the author of Persuasion IQ, Laws of Charisma, and the best-selling book, Maximum Influence.
Welcome to Podcast 543. Kurt Mortensen here. This is Maximize Your Influence, where we talk about the skills that you need to know to understand people, to read people, to persuade people, to negotiate what you want, when you want, and in the process, win friends for life. That's what it's all about. So we're going to get into that cold reading, that mind reading, the art and science of understanding what people are thinking, what's going on in that gray matter of theirs. But before we do, hopefully you're having a great week, great end of the year. You've achieved your goals. You're making things happen. You're spending some time with family. You're eating fatty foods, whatever it is you like at the end of the year. Hopefully it's happening for you. Having a good week myself. But let's get into this world of persuasion, motivation, influence, even self-persuasion, and get into the persuasion this week ninja. Now, if you follow the podcast, you know a lot of times we'll do the blunders, but let's do this ninja here where people do it the right way. That's what we want. And understand, people appreciate it when you do it the right way. They're easier to influence. In fact, one study I was looking at the other day is that millionaires, successful people, are easier to persuade than the average person. People get all tense. Oh, they're successful. They're a millionaire. No, they're easy to persuade. Then they might even say, persuade me. Show me what you got. It's the average person that's all resistance. What if they persuade me? What if they do? It could be a good thing. It could be very profitable. Show me the facts. Show me the figures. Show me the numbers. Tell me why this is going to work. It can be a very good thing. So this was actually a company that cuts down trees for a living, right? Prune trees, cuts down trees, that sort of thing. And I'm a little skeptical, a little low trust there, had some bad experiences, and that's something I could really do myself. Heck, I have a chainsaw, but it's not always that easy, especially if the trees get bigger and bigger and bigger. But anyway, this company came over, they were doing my neighbor's trees, and I do probably need someone to cut down my trees, and so they came over, knocked on the door, hey, is it okay, we're going to cut this, we're going to do this, is that all right? And I said, well, sure, make sure you get that one and that one. I'm like, sure, we'll take care of that. And they did. They got permission. They walked me through what they were going to do. All right, some points for that. And then as they were cutting things down, leaves everywhere, branches everywhere, I'm like, oh man, I don't have to rake. What's going on? What's happening? But nope, they cleaned it all up. They raked my yard, even the leaves they didn't knock down, and knocked at my door later on to see if everything was okay. Gave me a card, and you know what? I don't know if I'll do business with them, but they are definitely top of the list. They did a great job. They got permission. They went beyond what they were supposed to do, and they took care of business the right way. So, tree cutting service, you are the ninja of the week. And if you think about it with your business, it doesn't take that much longer to do a little extra, to exceed expectations, to get permission, to talk to some of their coworkers, to their neighbors. Because think about this, they had a great reason to talk to me, great reason to give me a business card. Didn't take much. Again, it doesn't guarantee we're going to do business, but it definitely puts them top of the list. Which, as you know, brings us to our geeky Scarly article. Coming from the Academy of Management Journal, New York University, University of Pennsylvania, and University of Arizona, that going up against a rival makes us take more risks. And that could be during family gatherings, that could be a neighbor, that could be a friend, that rival that just gets under your skin, that always is winning and you want to win more, that would be a rival. So the research did show that when they're a rival, or I could say enemy, or even your competition, researchers study the interactions between the rival and non-rival teams on fourth downs in over 2,000 NFL games. So for those of you around the world, NFL, that's the National Football League, not the soccer football that you know. This is the football with the pads, the helmets, that sort of thing. But 2,000 games to see what happened during some of these games that were rivalries. And they found when you're playing a rival, that competitor, that enemy, you're more likely to go for it. So they found that going for it on fourth down instead of punting or going for the 2-point conversion happened more during these rivalry games, right? That urge to win at any cost accelerated when they were a rival. So it's interesting, they did this lab study and they measured people's galvanic skin response and their heart rates. Now they call GSR that galvanic skin response. It's known as a electrodermal activity. What it does is it measures electrical changes in the skin caused by the sweat gland activity in the palms and the fingers. So it can tell when you're getting riled up. So they check the heartbeat and what was happening in the electrical changes in your skin. So when you experience strong emotions like fear, excitement, or stress, it triggers sweat from the sweat glands in the palms and your fingers. And sweat contains electrolytes, and that's what's measuring your skin's electrical activity. That's also the science they use in the polygraph testers, lie detectors, biofeedback, and other research that they do. So researchers asked volunteers to wear something representing their favorite school's team. And this study was done at the University of Arizona. And of course, they showed up in the University of Arizona gear. And the other people, the Confederates, those in on the studies, wore either the Arizona State University, that's their rival, or the University of Colorado, not a rival. Then the participants competed against each other in a risk-taking game. So when the students saw their rival's sweatshirt, their noses flared, their claws came out, and they made comments like, "What are you wearing that for?" Their heart rate went up, their skin response went up, and all that made them take more risk during this game compared to those who wore sweatshirts of a non-rival university. They didn't come to a concrete solution, but they do know when you're talking about competitors, rivals, people take more risk. So understand that. If you're the enemy, understand people are willing to take more risks, especially during a negotiation. And that is our geeky, scholarly article of the week. That brings us to our weekly email.
Oh boy!
And remember, if we use anything on the podcast, from email to question to humor, you get influenceuniversity.com for free. This comes from Joseph from Milwaukee. It's in the United States. He says, I've been seeing these psychics and these people that say they can read minds. Is there any truth to this? Is it a bunch of, I think that's hooey? There's your scientific term of the day, bunch of hooey, or some people call it woo-woo. Are there any elements of that can be helpful to the world of persuasion and influence? So let's talk about psychics. We see them all over the place. They're online. They're at every fair. I think they're on every boardwalk along the beach. What do? Well, they do a couple things. The first thing they do is hot reading. This involves gathering information about you before you even get there. Now, if they know your name, they can go through social media. They can do online searches, and you can find out a lot about a person just going through social media, just going through the internet. But that also involves you coming in. They're reading you right now. That's hot. They're looking at your clothing and your jewelry, which can tell you a lot. How do you interact with the person that you came in with? Are you smiling? Do you look skeptical? Are you excited? What type of purse or watch do you have? That's hot reading. That tells you a lot about the person. How many rings are they wearing? They look at earrings. That's hot reading. And then they go into cold reading. That's probably the one you've heard about, where psychics use general statements that apply to everyone. You recently experienced a loss. Tell me about the good thing that happened last week. You had that strong connection to that person who passed. And they observe your facial expressions, your reactions. Are there tears? Are you nodding up and down, side to side? That tells you a lot. I sense a strong male presence around you. Well, I get that 50-50 shot there. That was someone that you really admire. They were smart. They guided you through life. This is vague enough that applies to most people. There should be someone in their life like that. I sense there's a mentor in your life, right? Fill in the blanks. And people latch on to that. So cold reading is a technique used to gain information through observation. Got to do some inferring here. You're not right 100% of the time. But again, they look at physical cues from body language to facial expressions to tears. It helps them gather more details based on the responses and reactions. Then they start fishing for information, asking broad questions and narrowing it down based on the person's reactions. I'm sensing that there's something that happened recently. They could be shaking their head up and down. It seems like that was a negative thing in your life, right? And you just keep going with that. Maybe it was a positive thing in your life, and you start reading those reactions. Then they start adjusting their approach. They gain more accurate information. I see increased income in your future. Of course, people are going to smile to that. There are certain things that everybody wants. Then they start using common experiences. Like, I sense you're missing, or I sense you have a strong connection with someone you haven't seen in a while. Well, that's pretty much everybody out there. And you could tell just by doing cold reading. So cold reading is effective because it combines observation. And again, you have to assume certain things. Some people think that crosses a line as far as being unethical, disrespectful. That's up to you how you're going to use it. But even with your prospects and people trying to persuade, you can learn just to read them, to understand them with the questions you have. You don't have to do cold reading, lead them down this path, but you could ask questions, get more information. Hot reading, hello. You should do research about anybody that you talk to before you negotiate or try to sell them something. Absolutely. So there are things here that you can take, that you can use, that can be powerful to your ability to persuade and influence. So they're very observant. It's all about the person, the body language, the micro expressions, the vocal tone, even their eyes. Do they keep touching their face or their necks? That could suggest nerves or anxiety, that they're uneasy being there, that something's up. Then there's the old Barnum effect. You're like, all right, what's that? That's back to those general and vague statements. When a psychic says, you're a strong and compassionate person, and you have a strong self-discipline, well, pretty much everyone's going to accept that. Well, yes, I do. They're not going to say, no, I don't. So this Barnum effect, also known as a Four effect, refers to the tendency of people to accept vague general statements that are specifically tailored to them. So they're saying something that pretty much applies to everyone, but they feel that it was personal to them and unique to them. Where are some other places we see this? Horoscopes. You have a strong desire for others to like and admire you. Okay, yeah, that's pretty much true with everyone. Fortune cookies are in the same category. Incredible things are coming your way soon. Okay, great, that's awesome. I mean, you could even put general compliments in that category. In fact, we even see politicians do this. I call it fill in the blank. When politicians get up and speak, they have to speak to a lot of different people. We're all different, but then they say things that apply to everyone when they talk about liberty, freedom, change, whatever it is. That means different things to different people. Those things are so vague, but they feel so good. Everyone wants liberty, freedom, and change, but everyone defines those differently. But when they say liberty, freedom, or change, it feels like you're talking to that person directly. They fill in the blank, they define it in their mind, and they feel like it's talking to them. Another one we see with mind reading or psychics, however you want to define this, is the power of suggestion. It's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's also known in NLP or neurolinguistic programming as a presupposition. You're going to love how this car handles in the mountains. When we solve this problem for you, you're going to sleep better at night. When you start saving $500,000 a month, your company's going to be a lot more profitable. Hey, they haven't decided to do business with you, but you're assuming they're going to do business with you just by how you talk. That's the power of suggestion. It can be a powerful thing in everyday influence, persuasion, and sales. So that's cold reading. They're fishing for information. They're trying to narrow down through questions and read the person's reaction and responses. That's Influence 101. You're asking questions. Great persuaders ask 3 times more questions. We've talked about this. You're peeling the onion back, finding out what's really going on. They're doing it in cold reading and hot reading. You're doing the same type of thing. I mean, your goals are different, obviously, and you're not trying to be that vague, but you're trying to find exactly what the issue is. And if you can learn just to relax and focus on them and read their reactions, pay close attention to their body language, to their facial and micro expressions, that can tell you a lot. Did you hit the right button? Are they turning red? Are they getting angry? Are they excited? Are they indifferent? You could read that in body language. And if you feel like you need to work on that, go back to the archives at maximizeyourinfluence.com. We've spent some podcasts talking about reading body language, especially when it comes to deception, what you are looking for. Most of the time, we're pretty good at it, but you're so concerned about what to say next, what to do next, that you're not taking the time to read their body language. The key, just like with detecting deception, is you're looking for clusters. Just because they touch their neck doesn't mean they're nervous. Just because they are fidgeting in their chair doesn't mean they're nervous. Just because they're using more vocal fillers doesn't mean they're nervous. Just because their foot's tapping on the floor doesn't mean they're nervous. But ding, 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 if they're doing all of those, a cluster, they're probably nervous. Another thing what's interesting and a little controversial is looking at their eyes. This is also a function of NLP. There's other science here too. Some people really claim this is the best thing ever. Some people aren't quite sure, but let me explain it to you so you know that the eyes can tell you a lot. They are wired to your brain. So what your brains do and your eyes do different things. For example, visual people tend to look up when they're gathering thoughts. Auditory people tend to look to the side. Kinesthetic people tend to look down. I've tested that out, and that's right most of the time. It could be part of your clusters. That when that person looks up and to the left, you're right, when they look up and to the left, it's visual recall. That means they're usually recalling a visual memory, something that happened, a past event. When you ask them to describe their first car, their first date, their first kiss, usually they'll look up and to the left to recall that. That's how the brain's wired. This is what interrogators use as one of the pieces, not the whole thing, because this is definitely not 100%, but it seems to work most of the time. Now, when they look up and to the right, your left, it's called visual construct. And that usually indicates they're creating or constructing or imagining some type of visual image that's not happened before. When you ask them about a green elephant or stepping on a cube of butter, maybe things that haven't happened in their life, they have to create and construct that image. Most people tend to look up and to the right. So then there's auditory recall when they looked to the side and to the left. Usually means they're recalling a sound or some auditory memory. When you ask them about the sound of their favorite song, this is something they're remembering that they usually will look to their left. Then there's auditory construct. That's to the side and to the right. That suggests, again, usually they're imagining a sound that hasn't been heard before. For example, if you ask them what an alien might sound like when they're talking to you, well, they're going to have to create that, construct that sound in their mind. And usually like down and usually to the left or just down. Usually people are engaging in internal dialogue. They're talking to themselves, that self-talk. They might be trying to articulate their thoughts. You can also read a lot. I call this verbal packaging. That's one of the 12 laws of persuasion and maximum influence. You can tell their emotional state by their tone of voice, their volume, their speed. When people get high-pitched or more fast-paced, that can indicate excitement or anxiety. Every word they use can tell you a lot about them. If they use a lot of negative words like can't, won't, problem, that could show a lot of pessimism and they don't see a bright future. But if they're using can, will, opportunity, it can be more of an optimistic. They're on board, they can see that your solution is going to solve their problem. They start to match your rhythm of speech, your speed, your volume. Could suggest they're starting to mirror you and accept what you're saying. Again, the key here is just taking the time to read these. To read their body language, their facial expressions. Is it a real smile or a fake smile? You look at the eyes. We've talked about that. Is there nothing happening in their face? They look older? That's indifference. It's time to shift gears and do something different. Their posture. Is it open, accepting? Or are they folding their arms, crossing their legs? And of course, proxemics, we've talked about that personal space. If there's a disconnect, they're going to stand away from you. They're going to stand on an angle from you. Their feet won't be pointed towards you. Their shoulders will be pointed away from you. You can tell a lot just by taking the time to do it. So that's your takeaway. Be so prepared. You've done your research in the hot reading we talked about, that you know where you're going. You understand them to a point as much as you can to where your bandwidth, your mental capacity is on them, reading them, looking for those clusters so you can have more information to be able to persuade them, to read them, to understand them, so you can persuade them how they want to be persuaded, which is the key to everything we're talking about. Now, are all the things we talked about today ethical? Anybody can cross the lines with those, but some of these things that you can use, if you can just take the time to look at their eyes, to read their body language, to listen to their voice, and their word choice, that verbal packaging, to doing your research ahead of time, that's when you master the art and science of influence. So there we have it. That's our podcast for today. Go to maximizeyourinfluence.com to link to the articles, things we've talked about for the specials, to advanced training programs. And since it's the end of the year, we'll offer influenceuniversity.com, which is usually a monthly membership. That is my archives, all my training, where you can just go to the libraries and do a search, or you could go through the 52-week program, or you can just play around with the persuasion software that persuades for you. And it also includes all my books on audio. So this is a lifetime membership for $97. Click on the link in your email or go to influenceuniversity.com/special and take your persuasion influence to the next level. So do it. Take something that you've learned today, apply it, use it, become a better negotiator, become a better influencer, and go out and persuade with power.